spinning red. I was sitting alone in class when I noticed the hamster cage was hanging wide open. The weird kid Dex had taken Peanut out of her cage and was squeezing her in his fist. He grinned at me. "You're the hamster monitor for today, right? It's your job to keep this thing safe." I nodded at him. Then he said it out loud, so there'd be no confusion. "Class policy says whoever loses her walks the whole school in their underwear." I gasped, because he was right. I needed to get Peanut back into her cage before the rest of the class returned from lunch, or I'd be stuck in my underwear while everyone laughed at me. I told him to put her back, but he stepped up on a desk where I couldn't reach. I lunged anyway, and he swung her out over the aisle. Her legs dangled in the air, and she screamed for help. So I stopped grabbing and started begging, "Dex, please let her down. Peanut is pregnant with 3 little hamster babies." But his smirk just got even bigger. He held the hamster over his open mouth. I wonder how a hamster tastes. I froze and thought Peanut's fate was to be eaten by this gremlin. But that's when the door swung wide open. Lunch had ended, and every student had returned, only to see Dex holding the class hamster over his open mouth. The teacher screamed, "Dex, what are you doing?" And it was so loud that Dex accidentally dropped the hamster. Peanut flipped in the air and landed right inside Dex's open mouth. Everyone's jaw dropped, and I screamed, "No!" Dex started choking hard. His foot slid off the desk, but as he hit the floor, Peanut popped out of his mouth like a vending machine. I dove forward and caught her in both hands, soaked but kicking and alive. I carefully set her back in the nest and clicked the latch, safe and sound. But then she curled up and clenched her stomach. "Wait, Peanut is giving birth!" The whole class stampeded over Dex to crowd the glass and watched Peanut pump out 3 cute babies. The next day, Dex walked in his underwear, while everyone laughed and took pictures. I was sitting alone in class when I was stuffing my trash bag into the chute when my fat landlord appeared out of nowhere. "All garbage must be triple bagged. You will be fined $400 per bag." I crossed my arms because we both knew that was BS, and I knew exactly why he was targeting me. "You've been writing me up every week since my girlfriend Amelia moved in, and she tells me you check her out all the time. You're being petty and jealous, so I'm not paying a dime." He clicked his pen. "We're up to a $500 fine. Arguing with management is a violation." I laughed because I wasn't about to let myself be intimidated by a man built like Danny DeVito, but he turned red, slammed the trash room door open, and pointed at my apartment door. "That's an unapproved doormat. $200 fine. The $1,400 payment is due next week." I locked eyes with him and started throwing the trash bags down the chute. "Oops, forgot to triple bag them. Oh well." He snapped the pad shut and stomped his foot on the floor. "You know what? Amelia doesn't deserve you." I took out my phone. "Oh really? I had no idea. I'll let her know right now." I called her to come to the trash room, and as soon as she walked in, the fat man started sweating nervously. "Greetings, Miss Amelia." Her hand interlocked with mine. "What's going on, babe?" I spoke nonchalantly. "The landlord is fining us $1,900 for not triple bagging our garbage bags, and for having an unregistered doormat. He thinks you're not good enough for me. What do you think, babe? The fat man tugged at his collar, and Amelia tilted her head. Wait, I know you. You're the guy who takes the treadmill next to mine when the whole gym is empty. I see you everywhere. I told you to leave me alone. She jabbed a finger at him. You're a creep. The Oompa Loompa looked so angry I thought smoke was going to come out of his ears. Everything doubles. $3,800 fine. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. We can't afford that. For the first time all day, I stopped finding the situation funny. But he smiled at her, crying. Should have thought about that before you rejected me. Amelia wiped her face and walked at him with her fists clenched. He backpedaled and tripped on a piece of trash, and as he stumbled backwards, I reached past his shoulder and pulled the flap open. He caught the frame and his chubby legs kicked over the drop, and as he fell, I leaned into the shaft. Should have triple bagged yourself. That's a $400 fine. I guess we're even. I slammed the flap shut like I was closing his file. As we walked out, I was already looking for a new place to live. Worth it. I was stuffing my trash bag into the chute when my fat landlord appeared. I was defending a robbery case in court when I stood up and said, Your Honor, my client is definitely guilty. The courtroom erupted in laughter. Someone yelled, What is this lawyer saying? And my client's head snapped towards me. I was sweating buckets because there was only one explanation. That morning, my stupid son had blown out his birthday candles and wished for just one thing. My dad can't lie for the whole day. And now, because of that stupid wish, I was going to lose this case and end up jobless unless I somehow saved my reputation. The judge leaned forward. Counselor, would you like to rephrase that? I opened my mouth to fix it, but what came out was, No, Your Honor, he did all of it. My client yanked my sleeve and whispered, Fix this, or else. My jaw clenched harder and harder every second. But then I got a brilliant idea. I call my own client to the stand. He walked up smiling because we'd planned to feed him easy questions. So I looked him in the eye and asked the first question, Where were you that night? He leaned into the mic all relaxed. At home, sleeping, like I told the cops. But my mouth suddenly interrupted. No, you weren't. You told me you were at the jewel. I stood in the middle of my all-you-can-eat restaurant. I was defending a robbery case in court when I stood up and said, Your Honor, my client is definitely guilty. The courtroom erupted. I stood in the middle of my all-you-can-eat restaurant and felt like crying. I'd spent my life savings and trained for 5 years in culinary school, but 7 days in my dining hall was empty. The Kung Pao chicken I'd spent years perfecting sat untouched, and I dropped to my knees. But then, a 300-pound man walked in. He grabbed one of everything, and my face lit up because I finally had a real customer. But then I looked closer, and instantly got ready to fight him. He was adding his own herbs and spices to my food. I instantly stormed over and asked why he was changing my Kung Pao, but he stared at me like it was obvious. Because your original recipe tastes like dog shit left to bake in the sun, but with a few tweaks of my own, it's delicious. My jaw dropped, and I went to escort him out, but he shoved a spoon of my own dish into my mouth before I could say a word. I nearly gagged, and my hands shook in horror because I realized the recipe I'd worked on for so long was actually a crime against taste buds. Now try mine. He shoved a second spoon in my mouth, and my eyes glowed like in that one Ratatouille scene. This is incredible. I know. He walked to the entrance door, flipping the sign around to closed. We're turning this restaurant around. For the next 5 hours, I watched him refry my wings, re-season my fish, cross entire items off the menu, and call the recipes I'd spent 2 years on prison food. When he was done, I asked him if he was a chef, but he just twirled his fork. Nah, I'm just a fat guy who loves food. The next morning, I opened the restaurant, and at lunch, I watched my second ever customer take a bite of the Kung Pao. He nearly fell out of his chair and immediately went back for more. That evening, my restaurant was full, and Joe stood in my kitchen, eating the Kung Pao chicken, now as my head chef and co-owner of the restaurant. He saved my business, so giving him half was the least I could do. I stood in the middle of my all-you-can-eat. I asked my dad, what are you getting me for my 18th birthday? And he smiled. That day's still far away, so I forgot all about it. But on my 18th birthday, I suddenly fainted. My dad rushed me to the hospital where the doctor said, your child has a hole in his heart. Dad broke down crying, and I was sure I was going to die. But an hour later, he came into my room saying, it's a miracle, son. The doctors have a donor ready. So they wheeled me into surgery. When I woke up, there was a letter on my bed from my dad. But as I read it, I started crying. Son, if you're reading this, it means everything went well. Remember when you asked what I was getting you for your 18th birthday? Back then, I didn't know what to say. Now you know. I gave you my heart. I asked my dad, what are you getting me for my 18th birthday? And he smiled. That day's still far away, so I forgot all about it. But on my 18th birthday, I suddenly fainted. My dad rushed me to the hospital. I was on a public bus with my daughter when a man in a black ski mask stood up, pointed a gun at all of us, and screamed, "Everybody put your phones in the bag, now!" I yanked my daughter against my chest, ready to do anything to keep her safe. But my teenage daughter clutched her phone in its bulky pink case to her chest, shaking her head. "I can't live without my phone, Dad. I'm not giving it to him." My heart stopped. I grabbed her arm and begged, "Your life is worth more than a phone. You have to give it to him." But I knew how stubborn she was, and I was terrified she'd get herself killed. The robber
Bro, why she's not giving her phone? Oh my god.
stormed down the aisle, shoving his bag in each row, and phones dropped in one by one. But a man near the front clutched his phone and shook his head. "No, bruh, my whole life's on this thing." The robber grabbed his collar, but the man swung back, and they slammed into the seats, the gun swinging wildly as they grappled. "You're going to get us all killed!" someone screamed from the back. Then a shot cracked through the bus, the bullet punching a hole through the roof, and everyone ducked. I threw myself over my daughter, shielding her with my body. But underneath me, I felt her hands moving frantically over her phone like she was protecting it, and my heart sank because I knew she was still refusing to give it up.
Just give it up. I mean, I can't live without my phone though. If my laptop was gone, I'm gonna cry, bro.
Please, I begged into her ear. "Just hand it over. I can't lose you." Then sirens wailed in the distance, and the robber's head snapped toward the window, his grip on the gun tightening as he ripped the fighting man's phone away and stormed toward us. The gun swung toward my daughter. "Phone in the bag, now!" I was bracing for the worst, but my daughter slowly lifted her bright pink phone and dropped it into his bag. Relief crashed over me as the siren screamed closer, and the robber bolted for the door, but he didn't make it 3 steps before cops tackled him to the pavement. But then my daughter grabbed my arm. "Dad, look!" She opened her palm, and there sat her phone, glowing out of its bright pink case. I gave him the empty pink case, Dad. "I've been texting 911 while you were shielding me." My jaw dropped, because the phone she swore she couldn't live without.
That'll be phone work. But that should I do when I do that in the bus, bro. Oh my god, W, bro. Clicking this more. Guys.
Out was the only.
With Walmart.
When my history teacher accidentally taught us about caveman Kevin, the dumbest
The caveman Kevin?
kid in class, immediately shot up. "Is it true that cavemen invented fire?" The teacher nodded. "We should all appreciate it."
What? Let me search that. Does caveman invent? I quit.
Kevin cackled and rubbed his hands together like an evil fly, and
That's how you make. Wait. To my calculation, that's also an evil monster thing. But that's also one thing when you're in the snow. So when you're in the snow, you gotta rub it, and then it will make out of a warm pan of your hand, of your finger, your bone inside, and your hand, your arm. I mean, not your arm. So that's how you do it.
none of us were prepared for what he had up his sleeve. The next afternoon, we were back in the same seats when dark smoke filled